Can't hear you now, Sandra. Hear you now, Sandra.
All right, I'm just testing right now. I know we're getting a late start at this point, but. Is that okay?
I don't hear any feedback.
Backlog.
Think we got it.
Okay, I just have to turn my computer down because it's reading itself.
Well, which means that you won't be able to hear us, right?
I just have to listen really carefully.
Do you have a pair of earphones you can put on? Because if you can hook up the earphones, then
I don't think that I can sync to my laptop. I have not been successful doing that.
okay. All right. Well, let's go. Do we have anybody?
Nope, but we're gonna just go ahead and people will be able to watch this on record later. So thank you guys for joining us. My name is Sandra Buckles. I am at Maryland Crime Victims Resource Center. The concept of our Lunch and Learn is to bring rights to you. As you know, we are a nonprofit that works within all of Maryland, trying to make sure that victims have rights in Maryland, and we provide free resources for those in need. Joining us is our executive director, our director of legal services, and one of our board members. So I'm going to go through and let them introduce themselves before we get started. Kurt?
Hi, I'm Kurt Wolfgang. I am the executive director of the Maryland Crime Victims Resource Center.
Hi, I'm Pauline Mandel. I'm Director of Legal Services at MCVRC.
And hello, my name is Clyde Boatwright, and I'm a board member.
And maybe
Clyde is also with the FOP.
Yeah, so in my
And Clyde,
daytime,
tell us your Baltimore side.
yes, my daytime job, I am the president of the Maryland State Fraternal Order Police, and also a 22-year veteran of law enforcement in the state of Maryland, with the last 20 years being with the Baltimore City School Police Force, where I'm currently a police sergeant there.
Thank you so much. So the concept for our first Lunch and Learn is that we're all back to school. We all have different sides in this matter. For me, I am not an attorney. I'm not a police officer. I have children in the school system. I have worked as a long-term sub for the public school system. So I think that we all have different angles that we can help people that are in need of getting some questions answered. So I'm going to start off with the first question, like, what do I tell my child about what to do if they're attacked at school, and are there any federal laws involved with those rights or laws?
Clyde, do you want to start with your perspective?
Yeah, sure. So if your child is the victim of an assault at the school, the first thing they should do is contact an adult at the school to try to one, identify the other party that's involved, and also get any medical treatment. That's the first thing they should do to make sure that they are, not injured in a way that, they could suffer long-term effects from that. For the investigative phase of it, of course, get parents involved and try to get you as the parent there as soon as possible. And our children should know that school should be a safe place, and you should not be attacked in a school setting. But you don't want the school administrative team to try to like sweep things under the rug or just try to downplay that type of assault at the school because it's a school building. That oftentimes happens when schools don't want to end up on the persistently dangerous list. That happens throughout the state of Maryland when you have a school with multiple incidents like assaults and suspension. So schools will sometimes try to downplay the assault, but you want to make sure that you preserve all of your rights by making sure the young person wants to make sure they preserve all of their rights by getting adults involved, especially that their best advocate, which would be their parent.
So Clyde, you mentioned something that I want to ask you about. You said the persistently dangerous list, and that is something I've never heard of before. Can you tell us what that is?
Yeah, so typically schools that have a high number of incidents and suspensions could be labeled as a persistently dangerous school. And therefore, they get extra scrutiny from higher ups. There is it's a bad stigma that's put on a school for landing on this list, but it does exist. And so the question I've always tried to balance when seeing this list is the school being proactive by taking the corrective action by suspending certain students, or is it excessive? And that's where the advocates come in to play, where they believe that suspensions from school in some cases are excessive. So you have to try to strike a balance to determine whether one is more favorable than the other.
And one thing I would like to add to your comments about what to do when your child's attacked, or what to tell your child about what to do when they're attacked. If the attack is going on, of course, they have to get help in one fashion or another. And if they have a phone, to dial 911 if they can do that and the attack is ongoing. Obviously, what you said sort of applies to what they should do after the attack is over. But if something is ongoing, they need help right away. They need to dial 911.
Yes, and listen, I want this to be clear to everyone that's watching this Zoom. If you are in a school and you are the victim of an attack, you do not have to wait for the administrative team or anyone to call the police for you. You can dial 911 yourself, especially if you're in a classroom, if you're in the bathroom and you're hiding. Call 911 for yourself because the local police jurisdictions will receive the call, will dispatch the call, and will respond. You can say, I'm in the 3rd floor boys bathroom at, Clyde Boatwright High School on, Joe Jones Road. So now the police know exactly where you are and they are coming to assist you.
I think that, Clyde, I definitely appreciate that information. I think that we always think that, there isn't a need to call 911, but I think that, if people are in danger, they should always feel free to pick up their phone. And quite honestly, most of our kids do have phones, at school. I think that one of the things as a parent that's really confusing is oftentimes when students get into an altercation, you're almost told that if you were to fight back, or if your student was to fight back, that they would almost be like waiving their rights. Like, oh, well, you also assisted in this, altercation happening on school grounds. And so I think that as a parent is very confusing. Can you understand where that line is drawn and where we as parents need to step back and say that I no longer have the ability to do anything?
So there's a difference between an affray and an assault. And where that draws the line. If we're sitting in class and we're 2 students, and I look at the clock and say at 2:30, when we get out of school, I point to the clock, we're going to fight. And you across the classroom look back at me and say, okay, we're going to fight. We are agreeing to fight. That's a fight. That's a school fight, should be handled by the administrators. Police shouldn't get involved. But the minute that I'm a young person and I'm walking out of the classroom and I'm minding my business and someone attacks me from behind and it's unprovoked, that's an assault, and that is a criminal act. And so there's a difference between two students, walking down the street and they both drop their book bags and they both put their hands up, as opposed to one person that's not a willing participant, has his hands up, does not want to fight, is backing away, and they're still struck. Now they've been assaulted.
And so let me add to that obviously when someone is in danger, their first thought should not be, how is the school system going to treat me in this situation? Their response ought to be oriented towards their own protection and safety. And as recently as 2016, Supreme Court of the United States indicated that everyone in this country has a constitutional right to protect themselves. So I can understand, and we have heard and seen guidance from school systems indicating that somebody should not respond when they are attacked. And I'm going to tell you that's just wrong, and that they have a right to defend themselves. What Clyde is describing is a different scenario where people are agreeing to get involved in a confrontation. And even in those situations, the situation can change if somebody tries to withdraw and from the mutual affray, and the other party becomes the complete aggressor in the situation. But the point I'm getting at here is, if a child is being attacked, their first thought should not be, oh no, what does the school system say I need to do here? The answer is protect yourself. And that can be running, and that can be calling 911, and that can be covering your head, or that can be fighting back. All of those things you're entitled to do.
Yeah, and to support that, if you are being attacked, there's no rules at this point, and you can do whatever you need to do to protect yourself. And look, there's some argument about running away and duty to retreat and things like that. Yes, Maryland is a duty to retreat state, but if you've done all you can to retreat and you have no other avenue of escape, or running away could put you in further danger, then you can pick up something and defend yourself. Now, once that person becomes incapacitated and no longer fighting back, if you continue the assault, now you've become the aggressor. And that's one of the hard things to get young adolescents to understand. If you're being attacked and then you get a good shot off and you drop the person, now if you're hovering over top of them and pounding them, you're no different than what they were just doing to, trying to do to you. So you don't want our young people to now subject themselves to the criminal justice system by becoming the aggressor, when in fact they were the victim from the beginning.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Pauline, was there anything that you wanted to add?
Well, I wanted to say a couple of things. I think as parents, pay attention to when your kids come home and ask how things are going in school, because a lot of times they will, if there's someone who's starting to bully them or come after them or whatever, it usually escalates. So if you can get information from them up front that, this is going on, or this is going on, or, so-and-so said this to me or whatever, then you can at least go to administration and have some kind of discussion about, my child is reporting that this is going on. First off, they can alert whatever agency they have in the school to help with those kind of issues. If they have a police officer or security or whatever, to keep an eye out, but then also be aware of it. And one of the reasons it's really important to know who the person is, the attacker, is if the school system decides not to really do anything or not to go after the person, you have the right to press charges as a citizen or as the parent of someone who's been assaulted. but you have to know a name and you need to know an address. And so, you know, if you know that someone's been causing problems, ask your son, well, what's their name? You know, what's their whole name? You know, where do they live? Blah, blah, blah. Get that information because it might come later on. It might be very useful for you. So,
And yes,
And I definitely think that, I'm sorry, Clyde, go ahead.
yeah, and what Pauline was saying is correct. And you know, I struggle with you know, if you're a police officer and you know both parties, to pass information between two, because what you don't want to have is an incident where one group says, well, screw the criminal justice system, I'm gonna deal with it myself, and then I'm gonna go to that other party's house. And you know, that has happened in the past. So what we typically do, I know in my police department, we take both sides of the story. We write the police report after we conduct an investigation, and we forward that information to the Department of Juvenile Justice or Juvenile Services, depending upon what administration we're in. But it's been called both. And once Department of Juvenile Services get that information, whoever goes down to file a complaint, they already have the information because the report has been sent down by the police.
right, right.
And I think you guys just like naturally just came into the topic where I think is the most interesting for parents because, you know, as a parent, I hope that other parents are speaking to their kids when they get home, seeing how their day is, just like you said, Pauline, you know, see what's going on, how's lunch, like anything crazy happening on, you know, whatever. And then knowing when you as a parent need to intervene and try to maybe reach out to Maryland crime victims to see what your rights are outside of the school. Because I think that all in all, I would say that our schools are trying to protect our kids. There's a lot of them to protect. And there's, you know, there are going to be troublemakers with any group. And I think that, you know, as a whole, we entrust the schools to take care of our children. And then sometimes the mama bear comes out and is like, okay, that's just not good enough, right? When is the time that parents should say, you know what, I let the schools do what they had to do, but now I feel like I need to do more? Where should that be in this process?
Well, if you, I mean, the first thing I'm going to say is if it's a serious assault, you know, if there is a serious injury, if the child has been terrorized, if there is any sexual nature at all to the assault, those are not things that should be left to the discretion of the school system. And they should seriously consider getting law enforcement involved, regardless of, you know, sometimes they might even hesitate because they think their child might be accused of being involved in some fashion. These things should not be left to the discretion of the school system. That they have an entirely different set of concerns than the individual concerns of you and your child. They're concerned about their reputation as a school system. They're concerned about the perpetrator's rights. All things that you don't have to be concerned about. You should be concerned about you and your child and their situation. So if it's serious enough, you get the police involved. If the police are not responding in what you feel is an appropriate fashion, then you get us involved. And there are means by which on an everyday basis, Maryland Crime Victims Resource Center has charges brought against perpetrators when the system is otherwise not responding to your concerns.
Thanks for that, Kurt. And do people need to have a police report before they come to us?
No, they do not.
All right. So I guess let me move on to another question. We do have a few viewers, so I don't see anything popping up just yet. But thank you guys for joining us that are watching. One of the other questions that I have is, I'm a school employee. What are my rights? And so we recently had, I just really cannot recall. I know it was the end of last year where a teacher was involved and got assaulted by a student. And so now we're talking about employment as well, and they're in the school system. So what are their rights as teachers or custodians or, whatever other staff there is?
I
So,
think, go ahead.
our staff members, by becoming an employee of a school district, do not give up their rights to being a regular citizen. If you are at work and you are assaulted at work, you still have, the same rights as though you were on the street. The same rights as any other citizen would have. And let's be clear, school staff members who are breaking up a fight cannot be charged as for assault and breaking up a fight, unless they become an aggressor and start, pummeling one of the young people. Just by merely stopping two kids from fighting and one of the kids suffers an injury, you can't turn around and try to charge that staff member for breaking up a fight when that's their job to stop school fights. You don't typically want teachers getting involved in breaking up fights. However, it's appreciated if the gym teacher or the English teacher that's a ex-college football player can grab two students and separate them. That's great. But we try to, in most school jurisdictions throughout the state, try to keep police from being the ones that are breaking up fights unless they get completely out of hand. That's the last thing you want, is a police officer to be in the middle of breaking up a group of kids from fighting. But as far as a staff member, if you suffer an assault, you should feel comfortable in the fact that you can make a police report, and that's whether it's a student who assaults you or a parent or an outsider. In some of our more urban jurisdictions, our schools can be easily accessed through public transportation and by foot traffic. So so that does not leave our teachers with the avenue to say that I didn't know who that parent was because that parent pulled up in a car or walked up from the local transit stop. I know exactly who that was. That's Johnny Jones's mom, and I want to press charges against her. So you can now use every avenue available to go to the court commissioner's office and file charges or even get a warrant for that person.
I know that they would always tell us, if you guys missed it earlier, I long-term subbed for a couple years, and they would always tell us, not to break up fights, just don't even. And I'm like, yeah, that's so tough, especially when some of the kids and some of the things that are going on. It's tough not to intervene, but this 5 feet only goes so far. So any additions to that, Pauline or Kurt, that you wanted to talk about as far as being employed in a place of, and I think that works everywhere, right? I mean, it's just not school systems. It's
Right.
Even if you're on the job somewhere, that doesn't mean that you don't
Well,
rest on your rights because you're at work.
I'll give you an example of one of the cases that we had over the many years that the Maryland Crime Victims Resource Center has been in existence, and that was a teacher in a middle school who was trying to break up a fight, who got punched out and was knocked out and on the floor.
Mhm.
And when she came to us, she described to us, and so did her coworkers, the fact that the school system would not call 911 at that point, even to get her assistance, because the school system had a policy that before you called 911, you had to call the central office and let them make the decision as to whether to call 911. Now, thank God, our teacher was not seriously injured in that exchange. If she would have been, I would have suggested to her that she sue the school system for every dime she could get under those circumstances. They I'm back to the central issue, and that is they have their own agenda that sometimes is what we would call good and honorable, and sometimes it's not. And you cannot rely on them to do the right thing. You've got to protect yourself, and you've got to protect your child and make the proper decisions, because you don't always get the proper decisions from the school system.
I would like to add, trust your gut. If your gut tells you it's not right, then it more than likely it's not. And here's why. I found with the last few years, and I'll say the last 7 years, and here in the state of Maryland, we've had people elevated into leadership positions that have certain personal views of certain organizations and/or groups of people. And so in their leadership positions, they let their personal views kind of shape policy. And I'm saying that to say this: there are some people who create policy that has a direct impact on local governments without the assistance or advice of people that are charged with carrying out the policy. And what more specifically, as a police officer, we have been left out of a lot of conversations when it comes to like school discipline, when it comes to when the police should be called for school code of conducts, because I've noticed in my jurisdiction, they produce the student code of conduct, where in some cases, these are, very, very serious offenses that police must be called by law. But in some cases, it says handled by the administration, contact the parent, do not involve police. There's 4 different columns or categories. And if there's not a checkbox that says call police, some administrators will refer to that document and say, well, this doesn't say call police, so I'm not. And that's the policy. But policy makers sometimes forget important people at the table when creating their policies. So trust your gut. If you think this is something that the police should be involved in, you call us, we'll come and we'll say, hey, this is a local issue. This is the school system issue, or here's your rights. And let me give you a report and give you a complaint number.
And so, Clyde, you've hit right on why we're having this discussion today. The origin of putting this into discussion format was the fact that Montgomery County had a meeting back in, I'm going to say July, maybe August, early August, with parents discussing how the arrangements that had been made between them and the Montgomery County Police and how they were going to handle all of this. And implicit in the discussion was, shut up, we'll take care of it. It's none of your business. We have our process to do this, and you don't need to be involved. That was implicit in the entire process. And what I'm telling you is the main message for today is, don't let the school system decide what your rights are. You have rights other than what they want to address. And they have their own interests that they're pursuing. And those interests may or may not coincide with yours and your child's interests. If they don't, then get the police involved, certainly. And if the police are not, if it's not resulting in an adequate outcome dealing with the police, contact Maryland Crime Victims Resource Center. We will get involved. And as I said, we know how to bring charges against people without them having to be brought by the police.
And I think that's definitely, it's definitely interesting, because I think we all see the trending headlines on juvenile crime and things that are going on. Kids are younger and younger committing crimes. And I understand that they're trying to decrease this pipeline, right, from school into prisons. and we get that. I mean, we all get it, we try to be more lenient when it comes to children, and there, but there's a line, right? And I think that everyone wants to try to handle situations, but I think it's working together. It's working together, and I think that's why the brainchild of us even coming together, sitting down, talking about it with different angles as parents and attorneys and police officers and teachers and all that coming together to be on the same page is so extremely important right now. We need to make sure that we are protecting the kids that are trying to do the right thing and trying to stay on task. But I think in working together, I think we can really open up some doors and hopefully get some of these issues addressed. Was there anything else that you guys wanted to add on this particular topic as far as employees, students?
Yeah. No. I wanted to touch on what you just brought up about the school to prison pipeline. The talking heads will talk about the school to prison pipeline. They'll talk about root causes. They'll talk about reimagining. They'll use all these little buzzwords. But let's talk about what they're really missing. The point that school to prison pipeline fits into a narrative, and so it helps to enhance their argument. When in actuality, if you want to put everything that they're saying together, it's actually a womb to prison pipeline, because once these young people come out, they're already coming out with two hands tied behind their back. There's social drivers to community. That's a good family. That's a good religious base, a good educational system. If you have those three, there's no need for the other three, which is cops, courts, and corrections. So if we get to strengthening families, strengthening our education system, and relying on our faith-based system, we can have less incidents where we would need a crime victim resource center, or we would need to have police involved. So I try to, push back on when, and not necessarily you, Sandra, but when people say the school to prison pipeline, now let's go to the womb to prison pipeline, because that's where the failures begin.
Hear, 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 hear.
Appreciate that. We definitely appreciate that. And yeah, you're right. I mean, buzzwords, we can push all those aside and really just start facing some facts and dealing with some of the issues. And yeah, we do hope one day that people don't need us. I mean, I think that's always been the thought of, what once was the Stephanie Roper Committee, was that it would be a temporary thing, but clearly that's not how it's turned out. So we're still here. So thank you guys for that. Let's touch into college. What about these college kids? I think that, I always make sure that I do a social media post that talks about rights while you're in college. There's a lot of things going on there. Let me just open up the floor to rights on college campuses and universities.
So there are very few differences, because one of the things that we're discussing here is rights that are assigned to you as a victim, and those really are not assigned as on the basis of age. So there's very, very few differences at all. And there's also a few differences in the respect that the colleges seem to treat these the same way. They have their own interests and their own agendas, and paramount of those agendas is not protecting you and your rights. Unfortunately, time and again, we find that. So I will say there was part of an earlier question that didn't get answered, and that is there any federal matter that's involved here? And the answer is yes, both in public schools, any school or entity that takes federal money for anything, and that would be almost all colleges, almost all schools, or maybe not parochial schools. I'm not sure of that, but anybody who takes any federal money is subject to what they call Title IX, and essentially Title IX is a very broad sweeping law that has to do with people's rights based on sex. And part of Title IX is that the schools, whether there be public schools or colleges, are duty bound to provide a a safe learning environment in respect to sexual assaults. So that issue is not brought up in an incident where we're talking about only physical assaults, but once you get to sexual assaults, federal Title IX is involved. And what Title IX is supposed to ensure is that the school system makes an adequate response to a sexual assault of some kind to protect both the victim and everyone else in the school system. Very good example recently in Loudoun County that was discussed in the news lately was the fact that there was a perpetrator who committed a sexual assault against a girl in one high school. And while the process was working and the charges were pending against that individual, they simply moved him to a different high school where he sexually assaulted another girl.
Yeah, Montgomery County.
You're saying that happened in Montgomery County as well?
Yes, Montgomery
Okay.
County, Maryland, yes.
Because there's a Loudoun County case that's ongoing right now. Evidently what the Loudoun County school board has done now is make it clear that when someone is accused, that they will be put in an alternate school system until the accusation is cleared. And certainly in this instance, that would have saved the second victim from being victimized in the situation. Well, those are the kinds of things that sadly have to be forced on school systems because they don't want to deal with it. And that's true of colleges as well. So once again, it's sort of like having to be your own doctor when you're sick. You can't take the word of the school officials or, as they try to let you believe that they're the ones in control. That's not the case. You have rights, and we're happy to help you with them if no one else will help you with them. But you start with the police and then move on from there.
I think one of the things you need to think about, though, is both in college and sexual assault cases, and even in grade school and high school with bullying and all that. A lot of times, if the person is the victim, they're afraid to say anything because of the peer pressure and about what might happen to them if they do open their mouth, So that's something that, again, it's all being aware of what's going on and talking to your kid to make sure that you're getting a full picture of how things are going in their life and stuff like that. Because, it's when you start talking about bullying and peer intimidation, it is huge. There are kids who do things, are forced to do things they would have never thought about doing just because 3 or 4 other people in the group decided it's a good idea to go out with a gun, and one of them has it in their pocket, and then all of a sudden somebody gets shot in the back and killed, and you've got a 13-year-old who's dead, So, the whole idea of all this, I think, is, you were talking before about crime and about how, we are seeing so much more violent crime at such lower ages now. And, again, it's a lot of it has to do with being able to communicate, keep your ears open, and make sure that you are seeing and understanding exactly what's going on in school. You're not necessarily going to get that information from teachers, though. You're going to get it from the kids, but you have to really pay attention because, if they're being bullied and stuff like that, they may not want to open up and they may not want to talk about it. So
I'm sorry, go ahead, Clyde.
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to add to colleges and universities is that our citizens can get real-time information for colleges and universities off the website because back in 1986, a college student by the name of Jeannie Cleary was raped and murdered at a college. So there's now something called the Cleary Act, with every college and university that receives federal aid or participate in student financial aid programs must publish their crime stats and have on hand the last 60 days. So every incident that's reported to these police departments and or security departments for these colleges and universities have to publish this. And so that is a good resource for parents that have students in college, or you're considering a college for your young person that's going off to college, to know some of the things that you can look back over the last 5 years. We've had 7 rapes or 10 rapes reported at this college campus. Then maybe you'll, might think twice about, hey, this could be a little bit widespread here at this particular campus. So maybe we might choose the next college.
So I
Absolutely.
think
And
that as a
even if they
non,
did-
go ahead, Kurt.
even if they did decide to go ahead with that college, it may it's certainly good guidance as to what precautions that the person needs to take, that they need I mean, anywhere they need to keep their eyes open and take certain precautions, but certainly in a more dangerous situation, they need to be even more vigilant. And so it is important to check those things when you're selecting a college.
So thank you guys for that. And I think that I wanted to just back up a little bit back to where Pauline was talking about, like, we're talking about just the ones that are reported, right? So oftentimes there are, sexual assaults or things that are going on campus, whether it be parties or, whatever is going on campus, free from the parents, and you're out doing whatever it is you think you should be doing or not doing. And then all of a sudden something happens. And we had this discussion in-house before at Maryland Crime Victims during a staff meeting. And, so for those of you guys watching at home, I'm one of the only few people that does not have a law background sitting at our staff meeting. I always have to tell them to back up a little bit and explain it out to me, which is why I wanted to be present in this conversation when we just have a lot of people that are kind of at the same level of understanding of the laws and different things like that, just to bring it back down to mom mode here. So you've got a student on campus, something happens, rape kits. Let's talk about how long, what should they don't have to make decisions yet. This is a conversation that we had brought out before. Pauline, do you want to share with us like what that looks like? How long can you wait if you just go ahead and get a rape kit, I guess, processed?
I believe obviously if something happens, you should go as soon as possible and have the rape kit done. Okay. But what they can do is they do not necessarily have to put your name on the rape kit. You can be a Jane Doe, and you can make a decision down the line whether or not you want to go forward on the case, if you want to, if you want to pursue it or whatever. But if you decide to do it, if you've gone and got the examination, they've done the DNA, they've done the swabs and all that kind of stuff. If you do decide that you want to go forward on, pressing charges or whatever, you have something that you can use in the course of, the investigation. So don't be put off by thinking, if I go do this, if I go have the rape kit done, or if I have, go for the forensic exam and stuff like that, that means I have to go forward. You do have a choice. You don't have to go forward if you don't want to. I would suggest before you think about going forward, you call us, partly because as lawyers who have worked with with victims of rape and stuff like that, a lot of times we can answer questions for you, talk to you a little bit about it, what the process looks like. And you can really decide whether or not this is something that you want to go forward on, So just because you go in and have the exam done and you have the stuff would be collected. Like I said, you'd be a number thing from what I understand, but you would be listed as Jane Doe. All it would say would be Jane Doe, but your evidence would be under your name or whatever, not under your name, but under a number or whatever. And like I said, if you go and talk to the police and if you report it, that's the other thing, try to make a report even if you're upset. If you've been traumatized, a lot of times what you tell the police originally may change over time, and that has to do just with trauma. If you've never been through anything like this before, a lot of times trauma will cause you to forget parts of it. Maybe not, it will come back later. Sometimes it might take you 2 or 3 days to remember some specific things or some specific incidents. If you've been drinking, was it a smart idea to drink? Probably not, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't report it. Okay. So many girls think that, oh, this is all my fault. I got drunk. This is not, I'm not going to go forward. And then, they'll come to us 6 months or a year later and say, this happened to me when, and when we start talking to them, and again, it's not believed, it's always believed. But the problem is, if you want to try to do something, you need to have your evidence, or you need to have some kind of information that we can at least start with. So if you don't have to go forward if you don't want to, but at least try to take the precautions to have the tests done and the evidence saved in case you decide you want to go forward. A lot of the girls that I deal with, a lot of the victims that I deal with will think about it, and they may decide to go forward, especially if they've heard from other people, or they hear, oh, he does this to everybody, and et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes they don't want it to happen to anybody else, and so they decide to take a stand. But you can't take a stand if you haven't gone back and done the basic stuff at the very beginning, because then we do not have the evidence and stuff to really push them to go forward.
So let
Thank
me
you,
add a couple of things to that discussion real quick. The first one is rape test kit. It is absolutely vital that you do it within 72 hours. After that, it's not going to be considered good evidence.
Mhm.
But in reality, I would urge you to do it immediately,
Don't take a shower.
immediately. And obviously don't take a shower beforehand, but immediately, for a number of reasons. And one of them is simply so that it can't be claimed that you made this up or whatever, that if you're being very similar to what happens in a car accident. If you are injured in a car accident and you decide, no, I don't need to go to the emergency room, and that next day or 2 days later you are hurting badly, guess what the insurance company says? Guess what their lawyers say? They say you weren't injured at all. That's why you didn't go to the emergency room. You didn't have any injury at all. You're making it up or exaggerating it or whatever. So for the same reasons, it is, I would urge you, circumstances vary, obviously, and your situation varies, but I would urge you as quickly as possible to go and get help and report the matter and get a rape test kit done. You don't have to report even names. The police are instructed. Well, I'll let Clyde tell you about that.
Right.
Yeah. Hey, I'll say, just to add from a police perspective, over the last 20 years, we've changed the way we handle sexual assaults from when I was a rookie. I'm glad to see the way that we're proceeding. We are not trying to traumatize or re-traumatize the victims in these cases. We're not trying to get them to tell us the story. As a male police officer, I have to take into account that she may not feel comfortable with me. So it's always best to get these people who are victims into the correct hands, and the correct hands are the specially trained nurses that can handle that. And from a law enforcement perspective, we do want to preserve as much of the crime scene as we can to help our investigators get a case against the suspect in order to get it to the state's attorney's office for prosecution. So some of the questions we may ask is about location, so we can try to identify a crime scene and try to preserve as much as we can. But we don't want any victim to feel like they are in a position where they're being traumatized again. So yes, to Kurt's point and to Pauline's point, we want to be a partner from a law enforcement perspective in this whole process.
Thank you guys so much. And thank you for letting me relive learning that not too long ago. Thank goodness I've never needed to use that information for personal needs within my family, but it's definitely good information to have out there, particularly for these young people who just they barely know they have rights at this point, right? Like they've just kind of like broken off into out of the nest and into colleges. And I guess so we've got we're cracking down on 6 minutes left today. Just want to see if there was anything that you guys wanted to wrap up. I really appreciate you guys pushing forward that rights still exist as parents, as students, as people, as employees. Our rights are still there. And if you feel like you have been wronged in some way, or you're not feeling the support that you might need from the institution that you're involved in, please reach out to us so that we can, further guide you in the process. And was there anything else that you guys wanted to add in your wrap up?
Yeah, I'd like to read I'd like to read to you the list that I came up with. And this is available, I believe, on our website. Sandra will tell you where it is, but here's the list that I came up with for what parents need to know about their rights and the rights of their children. The school system does not and should not control what happens in a criminal matter in Maryland. This is true regardless of whether the offense is committed on or off school property or in school buses or at bus stops. Often the school system is interested in handling matters without charges being brought against the perpetrators. This is so for a variety of reasons. When a child or an employee or a parent is victimized on school grounds or in a school bus, the matter should be reported to school authorities. If the incident is serious or concerning, it should be reported to the local police. Call your or the appropriate police. I think Baltimore City schools have their own police force that Clyde's a part of, for example. Call your local police and ask them to investigate the matter and make a report. If the local police will not help you, but a crime has been committed, you have a constitutional right to request that criminal charges be pursued against an adult perpetrator or a juvenile, and that charges be brought against them. We'll help you. We, meaning Maryland Crime Victims Resource Center, will help you with that process. The school system has a responsibility to provide a safe environment in which your child can learn. And some federal laws do come into play, and that's that Title IX that I was talking about earlier. If you or your child are victimized in a serious incident, don't let the school system sweep the matter under the rug. Maryland Crime Victims Resource Center is ready to help victims of violence, criminal harassment, stalking, sexual assault, whether they occur on and off or off school property. And don't stand alone. Get help and call us.
Pretty good.
Thank you for that, Kurt. In closing, Clyde?
Now, I just want to make sure that everyone knows that they can come to our organization for help, and that they, like Kurt said in his last statement, you're not alone. We are here as a resource, and I'm available via email or phone, for anyone that's out there that may need some expertise as it relates to school stuff.
I would tell people we are not a state organization, we're a nonprofit, which means as a lawyer, we have nobody we have to report to in terms of if you're a prosecutor or you're pursuing a case, you have to do discovery and hand it over to the defendant. So if we're working with you, is, it is our responsibility to keep whatever you say is private. It's not dispersed to anybody else. So if you have an issue, especially like I said, with sexual assault or those kind of crimes, if you want, if you have some questions, or if you're scared, or if you don't know what to do, pick up the phone and call us. We'll be happy to help you, and we'll do whatever we can do to make things easier. So.
Anything else, Kurt?
No, I appreciate it. Appreciate the participation of our director, Clyde Boatwright, who obviously added a great deal to this conversation and has a great deal of experience. And we are so grateful to have you on our board of directors. And one of my favorite heroes in the entire world is Pauline Mandel, for all the work she has done for many years, helping crime victims. We are an organization full of those heroes. I am proud to say, and if you need our help, we're here. Sandra, you probably ought to put up a phone number or something of that nature if you're able to do that.
Yeah, they can directly message us. You can DM us on Facebook, or that would be great. I'll respond back to you as soon as I can. I left a link for if you are so moved during this presentation that you would like to make a donation. Otherwise, please know that our services are free. You can make $1 million, you can make $0. We will come and help you and make sure that your rights as a victim in the state of Maryland are adhered to. Our staff is amazing. Our board is ready to move, and we want to make sure that everyone knows that we're available for free, services for free. Go figure. No strings attached. How about that? All right, thank you guys so much. If there are topics that you guys would like to hear for next month, we are open suggestions. We would like to do these lunch and learns once a month. So if you can join us next month, we hope to see you then. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.